"Play something then, if you really think you belong here." The words, intended as a casual joke, a dismissive dare tossed without care, landed with the sharpness of a blade. The gathered students chuckled under their breath, convinced they had just put a lowly janitor in her place. But what unfolded next would silence an entire auditorium. Eliza Carter had spent 11 long years quietly polishing the pianos at one of the nation's most prestigious music conservatories. She had never touched them beyond her cleaning cloth, never spoken of the gift she had buried deep long ago. No one knew her story. No one ever asked. To them, she was invisibly fixture as much as the floors she polished, until this humiliating moment forced her hands onto a broken, out-of-tune upright piano. And from the very first trembling note, the world began to change. This is the true story of how a quiet, overlooked woman stepped into the light, not with status, not with credentials, but with soul, with truth, and with a sound that would awaken a forgotten piano, and an entire generation longing to remember what real music felt like. "You missed a spot." The voice snapped through the empty music hall with the polish of rehearsed superiority. Eliza, her cleaning rag still in hand, turned slowly to see Trevor Langston, a second-year student known more for his father's hedge fund than for his musical ability, lounging in the doorway. His violin case dangled from one shoulder, his smirk as gleaming as his manicured nails. He pointed at the grand piano she had just finished polishing. "Right there," he said, tapping the already spotless surface with a dramatic flourish. Without a word, Eliza wiped the spot again, her silence sharper than any comeback. Years ago, she might have responded. Now, she let her quiet stand taller than any noise. Trevor, dissatisfied by her lack of reaction, scoffed and wandered off to his practice room, his footsteps echoing against the marble walls. It was just past 6 a.m. At the Boston Academy of Music and Arts. The early sun spilled golden ribbons through the arched windows. The faint scent of rosin and polish still clung to the air, a perfume Eliza knew better than any sheet music. She had been working here long enough to know who offered real smiles and who looked right through her, and she had learned to tell which pianos still sang, even when nobody listened. Eliza folded her cloth with care and took a step back to admire her work. The Steinway Model D grand piano, a jewel of the conservatory since 1983, gleamed under her touch. She knew its tone, intimate, telleth rich, warm bass notes that no other instrument in the building could replicate. It was her favorite, not that anyone else knew that. "Mrs. Carter," called a voice from the lobby. Eliza looked up to see Miss Patty, the elderly receptionist, peering over her glasses from behind the marble desk. "They're prepping for the Whitmore competition this evening," Patty said with a smile. "You best clear out before the talent shows up." Eliza nodded, smiled faintly, and returned to her cart. But she didn't leave. Instead, her eyes drifted back to the piano, to the empty bench bathed in a sliver of sunlight. She glanced down the hallway, no one in sight. Quietly, reverently, she pushed her cleaning cart against the wall and walked toward the Steinway. Sitting down felt like stepping into a sacred space. Her fingers hovered above the keys but didn't press. She remembered being 7 years old again, perched on a battered stool in a smoky Savannah bar where her mother worked nights. After closing time, an old pianist with leathered skin and twinkling eyes had let her touch the keys. "You got it, little one," he whispered. "Some folks spend a lifetime chasing what you got inside." That had been a lifetime ago. Before illness, before bills, before dreams packed away in silence. Eliza let one finger fall onto middle C. A clean, resonant tone filled the hall, hanging there like a fragile glass ornament in the sun. She closed her eyes, savoring the peace in that single sound. Didn't know the cleaning crew gave concerts now. The voice startled her so badly she nearly tumbled from the bench. She turned sharply to see a young man standing in the entrance, wearing a security uniform, dark blue with a silver badge on his belt. He raised his hands, chuckling softly. "Sorry," he said, stepping further into the room. "Didn't mean to scare you." "I wasn't," she began. "I wasn't playing. You were sitting at a piano pressing keys," he said warmly. "Sounds like playing to me." Eliza stood, brushing imaginary dust from her gray uniform. "I should go," she said. "You don't have to," he replied. She looked at him properly now, young, kind-eyed, not what she expected. His name tag read Marcus Reed. Play something, he urged gently. I'm not really trained, Eliza muttered. Your hands say otherwise, Marcus smiled. Eliza looked down, surprised to find her fingers still curved over invisible keys. The muscle memory of a pianist, deeply buried but never lost. I never had formal lessons, she said, her voice defensive. Doesn't mean you don't know how, Marcus answered. She picked up her cleaning supplies, an invisible wall building around her. These instruments aren't for people like me. What kind of people are you? He asked quietly. The question stopped her. Simple, devastating. She opened her mouth, but no words came. You know, Marcus said casually, leaning against the doorframe. The Whitmore competition has a wild card slot. Open audition tomorrow morning. First come, first served. Eliza laughed bitterly. Sure, she said. I'll just march in wearing this and play against kids who've had private tutors since kindergarten. Marcus shrugged. Why not? He asked. What's the worst that could happen? Humiliation, she said flatly. Confirmation that I'm exactly what they think I am. Or the opposite, Marcus said. And then he was gone, his words echoing in the empty hall behind him. Eliza stood there, staring at the piano as if it might offer some kind of answer. She gathered her things slowly and left through the service exit. But Marcus's words clung to her like a second skin. At home in her modest Dorchester apartment, Eliza found the usual pile of bills and grocery flyers stuffed into her mailbox. As she sifted through them, her fingers froze on a thick, glossy pamphlet, the Whitmore Invitational. She flipped it over, and there it was, the wild card audition 9 a.m. Tomorrow, first 20 applicants only. She stuffed the pamphlet between an overdue utility bill and a pizza coupon, and tried to forget about it. But that night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She sat at her small kitchen table, fingers unconsciously tapping out a rhythm, a song she had never written but somehow always knew. When she finally rose to throw the pamphlet away, she caught the tagline at the bottom. Sometimes greatness hides in plain sight. The words struck her harder than she wanted to admit. Instead of throwing it out, she tucked it carefully into her drawer. The next morning, she lingered at the conservatory longer than usual, the polished floors whispering under her worn shoes. As she wandered closer to the audition hall, she saw them students buzzing with confidence, portfolios under their arms, laughter like champagne bubbles filling the corridor. She stayed in the shadows until Marcus appeared beside her, casual, easy. You came, he said. I'm just observing, she said quickly, gesturing to her uniform. I can't audition like this. I don't even have music prepared. Marcus pulled a folded form from his jacket pocket. Picked this up for you last night, he said. She stared at it, stunned. I heard you, he added quietly. Yesterday. You didn't know I was there. You were spying, she asked. I was listening, he corrected. There's a difference. Her heart twisted. Across the room, a woman in a charcoal suit called out. Last call. 5 minutes until registration closes. Eliza hesitated. Everything inside her screamed no chance, no way. But then Marcus asked again, so softly it was almost a prayer. What kind of people are you? Her hands trembled as she stepped forward. The coordinator, Alyssa Vaughn, barely masked her surprise when Eliza handed her the form. Name, Eliza Carter. And your piece, original composition, Eliza answered. A flicker of confusion crossed Alyssa's face. We usually prefer classical Pietschopin, Beethoven. It's all I have, Eliza said firmly. Alyssa scribbled something on the form. You'll be last in the order. As Eliza turned away, she felt the eyes burning into her back. Some curious, some amused. One boy leaned over to his friend and stage whispered, Pretty sure custodial orientation is downstairs. Snickers followed. Eliza clenched her jaw and sat down, hands folded tightly in her lap. She had cleaned this hall for years. She knew every creak in the floorboards, every whisper in the walls, and now she would find out if her music still lived. One by one, the other contestants filed through, polished, flawless. When her name was called, Eliza rose on shaking legs and walked to the battered upright piano they'd dragged out as a clear insult. Doctor, Vivian Prescott sat at the judge's table, flanked by two assistants. Her sharp, assessing gaze made Eliza feel naked. "You'll be performing an original composition?" Prescott asked, her tone polite but laced with skepticism. "Yes, ma'am," Eliza replied. "And your background?" Eliza lifted her chin. "Self-taught," she said simply. A ripple of laughter whispered through the audience. Prescott exchanged a look with the younger judge and then nodded toward the upright. "Proceed." Eliza sat, her fingers ghosting above the chipped keys, and then she played. The first note quivered in the stale air, barely more than a breath, but she didn't falter. Her left hand built a slow, rolling rhythm, steady and patient like footsteps in wet sand. Her right hand weaved melodies through it, fragments of gospel hymns, jazz riffs, lullabies half remembered from childhood. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, it was alive. The battered piano responded to her like a weary old soldier, battered, but not broken. The judges leaned in. The mocking students fell silent. Even the skeptical assistant lowered her pen, transfixed. Eliza's music told a story without words, of hardship, of hope, of dreams deferred, but not destroyed. When she finished, the final note faded into a breathless hush, and for one long, aching moment, no one moved. Then a single clap, then another. Then a wave of applause swept over her, raw and real. Prescott stood slowly, smoothing her cream-colored blazer. "Miss Carter," she said, her voice clipped, "it appears you've reminded us of something important today." The other judges nodded. "You are this year's wild card finalist." The auditorium erupted. Eliza swayed slightly, the room blurring around her. Marcus caught her eye from the back of the room, his face beaming. "Told you," he mouthed. For the first time in years, Eliza Carter believed it too.